Hey guys, I'm here in the morning and we're going to drop my dad over at LAX. So let's see how the latest version of the software, 12.5.1.3, can handle an LAX drop off. All right, let's go.
I can't wait to have it on my car.
Yeah, it should be rolling out hopefully pretty soon. The employee cars are now getting it on hardware 3. So it'll be interesting to test. See if it's any different than hardware 4.
I remember back, the days I started programming, we used to have a memory limitation of 256 kilobytes.
Hmm.
So our
Wow.
entire software had to be loaded into the memory and it couldn't be more than
Mm-hmm.
256 kilobytes.
Wow.
And then we used to optimize the code so much that it would be typically under 200 and leaving some room for dynamic allocation of memory and things like that. But so sometimes being forced to optimize is actually good
Mm-hmm.
because it trims out the unnecessary things that you can live without, and it makes your code more efficient. In this particular case, they say they trimmed out the model a little bit for hardware 3 for now, until they fully optimize it and have the same running on both. So I think what they got rid of is not necessarily anything related to what
Mm-hmm.
the driving behavior is. Might be related to the edge cases or something like rarely happening.
Well, I mean, I think probably what's going on is they're just trying to make the hardware 3 execute the model or inference the model that's 5 times larger parameter count with sufficiently good latency.
Mm-hmm.
So, it seems like they're kind of working on the inference engine itself. He said that hardware 4 has certain functions that are hardware accelerated in the silicon,
Mm-hmm.
but hardware 3 doesn't have those. So they have to implement like GPU kernels or something to get the GPU to accelerate it.
Characteristic
And
cop, by the way.
mhm,
Uh-huh.
and that's just going to take a little bit of extra time, but once they implement and test those GPU kernels or whatever, then it should be able to run the exact same model hardware 4 is running. But until that, like, this slightly smaller model should be probably almost as good, but not quite as good.
Is it possible to take like a hardware 3 car to Tesla Service Center and have it upgraded to hardware 4?
They're not doing that right now. It's a little bit challenging because of the power supply, from what I understand.
Okay.
But, it could be done if it needed to be done. But, I think they can't really go down that road of upgrading millions of cars.
What's the difference between hardware 3 and hardware 4 other than the cameras?
The cameras are higher resolution. The chip is a little more recent,
Mm-hmm.
so it's got some additional processing power. Um,
Same chip though, just more new and recent.
I mean, yeah, the next generation of their chip, it's got their AI 4 chip instead of their AI 3, so they've got
Okay.
their inference engine
Okay.
that allows them to just sort of pass in a model to the inference engine and it'll handle the whole thing and just give them the result without the CPU or GPU really having to get involved.
Mm-hmm. you know, the fact that they have their own chip for this task, nobody is even talking about that. But I think just being in the business of chips these days and manufacturing chips that can do GPUs and all of that, look at where Nvidia is, right?
Yeah.
The valuation of the company just based on the chip, especially if they can cross sell it to other manufacturers or other vendors, like especially car manufacturers. And since it's optimized for self-driving,
Yeah.
so that could be in itself a huge business.
Yeah. On the training and the inference side. And
Yeah.
one interesting thing in their new data center is they actually use their own inference chips as part of the training process in the forward pass. So, when you're training a model, first you have to inference the model,
Correct.
get the result, and then you optimize the loss function and try and minimize the loss, try and make a slight adjustment to the weights. So they use the same hardware that runs in the car for the forward pass, which is kind of interesting. So their new data center has, I think, tens of thousands of car computers in the data center hooked up next to the H100s.
I like that. So less uncertainty.
Less difference between what
real world and that.
Exactly.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's actually very clever.
And probably saves a lot of money too, compared to doing it on an H100 or something like that.
Why, I can only imagine the amount of pressure that the AI team is under constantly.
Yeah.
Because, this is like doing a heart surgery every day.
Yeah.
Right? They know that thousands, if not millions of people are using and relying on this particular technology. And if anything goes wrong, if there's a serious bug, people could get killed.
Yeah.
And
even just a slight error in the output.
Yeah.
So if the right turn angle is outputted as 0.335 instead of 0.333, that can be the difference between someone's life and death.
Exactly. That could hit a bicycle guy or whatever, So I think that, I salute that team, not only for, being brave enough to be on this process for the last 2+ years, which means, you can only imagine how many improvements have been made since.
Look how cautious it's being around the cyclist.
Yeah.
You're just talking about that.
Yeah. And so whatever it was 2 years ago obviously was significantly different than what it is today. Today is as much improved. So, but they went ahead and released it 2 years ago, and that allowed them to make these constant improvements. If you remember, I said that 2 years ago that FSD is already here. It's not going to be a light switch where we're going to turn the switch on saying, hey, we have self-driving cars. It is going to be exactly that. We're going to start with autopilot, then we're going to start with traffic lights and stop signs and left turns and, eventually everything. And it's getting there. It's a journey to achieving FSD. It's not something that you flip a switch. It's not a new chip you came up with that you did a lab testing and putting them in the PCs. So going back to Tesla teams, kudos to them for not only having the confidence in what they do and then trusting the software with thousands of lives, but also doing this on such a regular basis every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So
yeah,
it's not easy. Even if you do shorter sprints, the amount of testing needed, that means they're literally working 7 days a week, probably 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
To get us the software updates every 2 weeks. Even the small point increase is requiring them to go through the entire set of unit tests and whatever tests they have to make
Right.
sure that they didn't create a new issue. And the
Yeah.
company's future depends. Market is very brutal. One mistake, look at what happened to Cruise, right?
Yeah.
So, although Tesla is way advanced, but this is this is really what we saw when we were humans were building airplanes and trusting the lives of hundreds and thousands of people to fly in their planes and making them so good that that eventually it became acceptable at a mainstream.
Yeah, I think if anything, the past few years taught them what not to do. It's really amazing how smooth and comfortable the new software is. It's actually got a more comfortable driving feel than even Waymo.
Yeah, true.
And it hasn't made really a single mistake so far.
Yeah. So, the problem with Waymo and any other product that I've seen so far is I don't see them as practical and scalable. Practical in the sense that you by the time you add so much hardware like lidar and all of that, you're just increasing the cost of the car so much that it'll be out of the budget for people to afford that. Number two is that they're mapping the street, right? You can't do that worldwide. It'll take 50 years to 100 years for us to map it at that level, and streets are constantly changing. And last but not the least, when you have that many hardware, you're creating more points of failure. So chances of things going wrong are much higher, one malfunction in an extra hardware. So that makes it difficult for them to scale mass production. But in this particular case, since it's purely cameras, it's only one thing that they're worried about. Cameras are working fine and much easier, and everything else is software after that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Waymo is scaling. They've doubled their rides in just a few short months since they've opened to the public. But not that rapidly. They're not adding, a city every month or something.
Correct.
So I think people do underestimate the significance of having a computer vision model that can drive for people. I mean, that's really going to be the key to getting this from, maybe less than 1,000 cars that are self-driving to millions of cars that are self-driving and can help prevent accidents when, a human makes a mistake.
True. Do you know how many cars have FSD and that Tesla is reported on and Tesla is collecting data on?
Well, they've got, I think, more than 6 million cars in their global fleet. The number of FSD users in the United States is somewhere around 400,000 to 500,000. And the number of Waymo cars is around 700.
Yeah, and that's a huge difference for two reasons. One, the data set is significantly bigger, and then the places that the Tesla FSD car goes to, Waymo is not going to those places. Waymo is going only to the mapped places. So this one,
Yeah, can't go to LAX, for example.
yeah, can't go to LAX, can't go inside a parking lot, that kind of stuff. So you're both going, deeper with more cars and broader with more area with Tesla, and that, by the time you understand how much data is being collected as an extra data, that's what makes this technology more practical in terms of spreading. Like it's easy to roll this out in Canada, Europe, New Zealand, Australia, other places. Waymo's got a lot of work to do on that front. So is it possible? Can they scale in maybe 10 years once they say, okay, we're done, this is it, we're going to now scale it? I doubt it. Even when they're done with LA and San Francisco, they got to go put that in New York City. It's a whole different challenge.
True. I mean, I think they're obviously the best driverless service in the world right now. So you got to give them credit for that. But at the same time, I think the issue for them is really, can we turn this into a business? Because right now they're probably generating not more than a couple $100 million in revenue, and they're burning billions of dollars running the business. So to try and make it work, I mean, Google can fund it for a while. They've been funding it for 15 years now. But eventually, the business has to stand on its own two legs.
Yeah. But I don't think they're doing it for robotaxi business. I think they're doing it for innovation of self-driving, which then they probably plan to license to other car manufacturers and make money off of that. So they want to be the Qualcomm of self-driving, where Qualcomm chip went into every cell phone, and they pulled back from being in cellular business. But Qualcomm did have their own phones initially to test out their own chips. So I think it's a similar situation where I think they'll pull all the Waymo robotaxis out at some point when they feel like they can now give this technology to other car manufacturers. The key is, will the car manufacturer then agree to putting all that hardware on their car and making their car look like a tank to drive on the street? So it has to be aesthetically appealing at the same time. So that's another challenge. I think that
Yeah, I mean, to license it, that's a lot of hardware to put on a vehicle. Like, think about this Toyota Corolla.
correct.
Is that going to have a LiDAR? And, if they put the Waymo hardware suite on that car, it'd cost more than the car, right?
Yeah.
Several times more than the car. So Tesla, I think, has a real advantage there in that they can say, hey, just slap a few cameras around the thing. It'll probably cost you less than $2,000 to put the computer in the cameras and hook up to the steering wheel
Correct.
and pedals, and that's it.
True.
In the sense that they have a really unique solution for licensing because it works in Europe. Like they've done demos in Germany, had to do roundabouts for regulators, and they said, oh, it did it without any intervention. And they have it running in China and working decently well there, and they have it working in the United States. So if you want to license something that's simple and low cost enough to put into a mass-produced vehicle and can work around the world, this is basically the only solution that can do that today.
Yeah, but also, let's not forget the technology, right? We're talking about, the legacy code writing technology, if then this, then that, versus, GPT kind of technology where a lot of decisions this car's making right now are, nobody's written a code for it, right? Nobody's told it to behave in such a way. It's got its own intelligence that is significantly higher, and there's no code lines.
Yeah. That's all the issues we were seeing over the years with FSD was
Correct.
human written code and its bugs.
No, it wasn't bugs. It just could not anticipate every situation. So now you get any situation, you don't need to program it for that situation. You need to make it intelligent to handle it on its own.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yeah, the learning has really been a powerful paradigm for it. It's completely changed the way it works.
I think V12 was the ChatGPT moment for Tesla FSD. I mean, I was pretty impressed with 11.4, 0.3.6 or whatever that was, and then V12 came in. I was like, wow,
But I think this 12.5 is really going to be the one for the masses, because the steering wheel nag was really confusing for people. So now it's dead simple to use.
Yeah.
Just turn it on and watch the road. That's it.
Yeah.
So even, a new user can learn how to use it extremely well.
Correct.
And the driving model, the new larger model, is significantly better. It doesn't make mistakes nearly as often. So you can drive for a long time and not worry about it.
True.
So this, I think, is really going to be the one where, for the mass market consumer, it starts to meet the bar. I think a lot of people with the trial on 12.3.6 said, hey, this is cool, but I'm still seeing too many mistakes, and I don't want to deal with that on a regular basis.
Our attitude towards self-driving technology in Tesla has significantly changed. I was extremely excited when I got my first FSD. I think it was 2014, autopilot actually.
2015.
2015, just to drive on the freeway and be able to slow down,
Yeah.
and change lanes.
I was excited too. I remember when you got that Model S. Remember we were driving on Hawthorne?
Yes.
We said, wow, I can't believe it can handle all this traffic. And we were amazed it was just staying in the lanes back then.
Yeah, and it was slowing down, and it was changing, with a blinker it would change the lane. And but I do remember, it would not slow down on curves.
Yeah.
And I was driving on a curvy road, and it almost, went off the edge of the road. But that was our excitement in back in 2015.
Yeah, that was actually the Mobileye system back then.
So now we're 9 years fast forward. At this point in time, that's kind of granted, right? We don't even talk about that. We're not talking about edge cases.
We're now talking about it doing the entire drive and parking and...
Yeah. So now it's a different scale, different level of acceptance, higher expectations.
Yeah.
Because now we're saying, okay, we're this close to having a car without a steering wheel and without accelerator and brake. What is it that, how close, what else needs to be done to achieve that? And we're just, crossing those T's and dotting the I's now, and making sure that we have every drive without any intervention. And if we get one intervention, we are disappointed.
I know, yeah.
As compared to only 2 years ago, if I would get 4 or 5 interventions between here and LAX, I would still be excited.
Right.
They almost drove, I hardly had to do anything.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh my God, I had to
press the accelerator once.
Press the accelerator once or whatever,
Yeah. There's quite a bit of morning traffic here.
Yeah.
It's pretty crowded getting onto the highway, so let's see how it's able to handle that, if it makes it onto the highway or if it maybe misses the entrance.
Oh, it won't miss the entrance. One thing that you have to give to Tesla team is they have mastered lane changes. It can handle lane change in India, where the traffic...
I don't know about India, but can definitely handle California.
Yeah. Well, LA. I mean, LA is probably one of the world's most crowded...
Did you notice how it's letting that car go?
Oh my
car wasn't giving it a gap.
Yeah. Just like me, I would do exactly the same thing with the guy. The thing is that it didn't turn the blinker on until it let the car go, and then it said, okay, now I'm safe. So it doesn't necessarily ask people to let it go, which, by the way, would be fine too. There are some courteous people in LA that might actually slow down and say, okay, go ahead.
You didn't even want to bother him.
Yeah.
He just did the right thing.
Yeah.
And, the net effect for the passenger is you don't have to worry about it. Before, when it was getting onto a highway or something like this, you'd have to be paying extra attention, saying, okay, is it going to be able to do this? Is it going to miss it?
Wow, look at that lane change.
Yeah, that was a pretty tight lane change.
And it didn't have to do it because we could have gone in the carpool lane. Both lanes turned right, but it wants to play safe.
Yeah, make sure it doesn't miss it.
There you go.
Busy on-ramp to the 405 here.
It can go to carpool lane if it wants to.
We've got a semi-truck.
Yeah.
We've got some other trucks. It's just patiently waiting in line for its turn. And it saw the green light. It went. Going behind a semi-truck. We got another car merging in from the left. Lets both of them go ahead.
Yeah.
Very nice. And now we're merging onto the 405 North.
One of the biggest, busiest junction of 405 North is this is called South Bay Bend, and I have never seen this intersection or this ramp empty or less crowded, no matter what time of the day you're driving, even at 3
Really good
a.m.
merge.
Beautiful merge. Quickly down to
Smooth,
the second lane,
comfortable. I don't think I could have done it better myself, frankly.
Yeah, neither could I.
It's like a private chauffeur, like a professional now.
Not to ignore the fact that the stress level in driving in LA and getting on these on ramps and merging into the lanes as a human, that toll, that stress, by the time you get to work, you're exhausted mentally. And now with this, you and me are having a conversation as if we're being, driven by a professional driver. We're not even worrying about it making any mistakes because of the confidence and trust it has earned. So that's
well, it
something.
still can make mistakes, of course, but
Correct, but
overwatching.
But imagine you merging into that traffic. It would create a little bit of stress, right? Depending on your personality. Some people actually, start sweating. On LA freeways. So that's gone. You're no longer sweating.
Even experienced drivers.
Look at that.
Wow, really good. Pretty incredible. And not huge gaps. The ability for it to know when it's got a chance and when it doesn't is
incredible.
Yeah.
And we're not that far from our exit. We're only 1.8 miles.
Right.
So it's not saying, oh, let me just stay to the right because I'm only...
In a previous version, it would probably stay in the right lane.
Correct.
Because it said, okay, I don't have the competence to get over to the left lane.
Or confidence.
Yeah. Actually, in previous versions, it couldn't have even gotten over here.
It couldn't have.
It would have just fallen on its face trying to make those lane changes.
Exactly. Well, I used to hit the blinker to force it to change the lanes because it would.
Right.
But I would not go to the fastest lane.
Yeah.
That would be overconfidence on my part too. So I would just try to stay in the second or third lane.
Normally you'd have to take over to merge.
Oh, this part, from 405 to 105, when you are less than a mile and traffic is bumper to bumper, even me as a human driver would be by now in that lane to the right. I wouldn't be.
Well, I think it may be taking Century Boulevard.
Could be.
It looks like from the map it's taking Century Boulevard rather than 105.
Which is smart because 105 gets crowded, especially that exit.
Yeah.
So a local guy would know that. And I guess so does the maps. So
yeah, it probably just computed which is the shortest route, and that's what it came up with.
Yeah, that's what it's doing. Another lane change is going to come soon. 0.5 miles. So interesting that it has an opportunity to get to this lane, but it doesn't until it gets to almost 0.4 miles. So 0.5 was it's just playing it safe.
Yeah.
Now
I think it's doing it perfectly. As long as it makes it to where it wants to make it, I don't really care how it gets there. This is interesting.
Oh, it's going to take 105 now?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just getting over to the right side.
Okay. It doesn't read signs, So all this lane data is coming from where?
The map.
So my question is that lane data on the maps available for all countries in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like if you just look at a Garmin, it'll give you lane guidance. It'll say, hey, be in the right lane, be in the left lane. Here's how many lanes there are, the right to go over.
I know, I'm talking about U.S. cities. I was referring to, underdeveloped countries. I don't think they have the lane data. So how critical is that for FSD to perform?
I mean, it's just turn-by-turn directions. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
That's true.
Everybody has turn-by-turn directions.
That's true.
Oh, so look at this. It
Oh,
actually
wow.
is going around these guys because it knows it can exit from here too.
Wow.
That's a level of,
Confidence.
yeah,
Yeah.
that you never would have seen before.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now it's changing the lane back.
And now look at the 405, completely jam-packed. And it's just escaped all of that.
Amazing. Have you ever taken FSD to LAX before?
Yeah,
So it'd be good to compare that clip of the video with today's video and see what the differences are in terms of lane changes to, choice of lanes,
yeah.
all the way down to the route to actual terminal drop-off. Let's see how that goes.
Well, I've never been able to get it to do an actual terminal drop-off before, but
Oh, you haven't?
I mean, it's just hard to get the pin in the right place.
Yeah.
Usually it kind of just drops me off outside the loop where it ends there. But now with the new sub-destinations, it should be able to take us exactly to the
True.
terminal we need, which is Terminal 2.
True.
And now you can actually say departures. It would always drive me nuts trying to find a pin
Mm-hmm.
that would get it to go where I wanted it to go.
Yeah, because maps are 2D, so and departure level is one
Right.
level higher than the arrival level. So
Right.
how do you pinpoint that?
So now they've got a new system. You just type in LAX and you can say exactly what spot you want
Yeah.
to be dropped off at. So I think we're probably only a few years away from the car being able to drop you off at the airport itself and then go home. As crazy as it sounds,
True.
I think it's going to have the capability to do that. I mean, it's already taken us, all the way.
Goldman Sachs recently said that they believe that we are now 3 to 5 years from completely autonomous cars. 3 to 5 years. That's a pretty aggressive.
There are already driverless cars on the road.
No, they're talking about mass production.
Like, it being widespread.
Like it being available for people to go buy those cars.
Oh.
Right now, you can't buy
Yeah.
a car that doesn't have a steering wheel and gas pedal.
Yeah, I mean, they could be even shorter than that, the way the technology is evolving.
Yeah, 3 to 5 years is nothing.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it took longer than 5 years at this point. That's probably...
I was at a resort recently. It was a pretty large one, and they had these different areas in the resort, like the hiking area, the swimming area, the games area for the kids or whatever. And they had these free shuttle buses. Like, they weren't really buses, they were like minivans, but they were free. And there were like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of them with 4 drivers, right? And 24 hours, but towards the night they were only 1 or 2. And like the wait time towards the evening was pretty long, like 30 minutes sometimes, or 15, 20 minutes. And I was thinking about that. I said, hey, you know what? This whole resort is such a small area. This is where you could safely deploy Tesla FSD car without any human being on it and have it pick up and drop off people at program it to make all these stops and go in a circle all the time, because it was like a circular route with 6 stops, right?
Mhm.
So, and I see that in a lot of resorts. It's not just one. In a lot of these enclosed spaces or large hotels,
Mhm.
where there are people driving you around either in golf carts or whatever. Those kind of, um, services where humans aren't necessarily being involved in, performing those repetitive mundane tasks. That is, I think, something that Tesla and of course Waymo can also map that. They can do that today. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to wait till tomorrow. It's like the trains at the airport, right? So they're all driving themselves. They just program to make stops. End of the story. So there could be a soft rollout of FSD. Instead of putting them on LA freeway, let's put them on all, smaller cities created by these resorts or whatever, and then test the complete autonomy there, because they're still going to experience a guy on a bicycle or kids crossing the street. So they're going to have a lot of data, and then take that and say, okay, now let's do it. Let's do it in cities where we have more predictable traffic, something like Phoenix, and then expand to LA. I'm really surprised and impressed at the same time that LA and San Francisco has been the biggest playground for FSD. Two crazy cities in traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, pretty advanced. It can handle everything at this point, but yeah, maybe, starting to deploy it off-road. I think even just to Tesla's factory, having a shuttle for employees, that
There you
type
go.
of thing,
There you go.
they're probably
Yeah.
not far off from that.
And hotel to airport shuttles, those kind of things. Short routes, predictable behavior.
So, notice people are already starting to act crazy, cutting each other off, change lanes.
Yeah.
So we're about to enter the LAX loop here, which is probably one of the most nightmarish traffic scenarios in California, is this LAX loop. So we only have to go to Terminal 2, but we'll see how it handles it. And
Well, you still have to exit from Terminal 2
it also
to
has
home.
to
Yeah.
it also has to make sure that it
Exit is
Go-
actually more challenging for you
Yeah.
than getting to Terminal 2. Terminal 2 is pretty close, but then I am curious.
it also has to make sure it gets into the departing flights area,
Yeah.
and that it goes over to the left here rather than going straight onto Sepulveda Boulevard.
Yeah. Oh, it'll do that. That part, it's smart enough to figure out.
I don't know. It was saying hang to the right, so I wasn't sure if it was going to go over there, but it looks like it did go the right way, heading over to the terminal.
How people been driving FSD in New York City,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, they've been saying it's pretty good.
actually New York City has simplified its traffic quite a bit by almost making everything one way.
Well, it's not simple in any sense of the word.
Yeah. But one way makes it easier.
Once they do end on the highway, then it'll only be a matter of time before you can go California to New York without an intervention. Could be before the end of the year.
I use my FSD on highway quite a bit whenever I go to India for the project, and it's a 2-hour, 25-minute drive to over 30-minute drive to over 15-minute, sometimes even 3-hour drive, and I usually go with other partners in the project, and we're just having a conversation throughout the drive. Nobody's even mentioning that, hey, you're not driving, right? They gotten so used to it that it's now not even talked about.
Right.
First few drives, all we were talking about were like, wow, it handled this well. Oh, it did this good. Now we're just having a conversation about different things. We're making phone calls, all kinds of stuff. And the other day I made that comment. I said, did you guys notice that we are now driving 2.5 hours without me touching anything, and nobody's mentioned anything because
Yeah.
it's like the level of confidence and comfort is exponentially better than it was only a year ago.
Hmm. Yeah, I was doing some tests. I gave an hour of rideshare rides, and I picked up a few people, and FSD did the entire pickup and drop off. Not a single person noticed that FSD was driving. It's so natural that you wouldn't even think that it's anything but a human.
Correct. Ladies and gentlemen, this is LAX. You're home to 2028 Olympics, Los Angeles. And
Somebody made a joke on Twitter. They said, traffic at the 2028 LA Olympics is going to be so bad, you better start driving now.
our mayor said no cars in LA 2028 Olympics. We're going to have enough public transportation, lots of buses.
I say they should make it all autonomous cars.
That would be amazing. That's what I was going to say. We have 4 more years. By then, come on, put a deadline to people. Say, Tesla, you got to have autonomous driving buses that take our athletes and coaches and everybody else, from one spot to another, from Olympic Village to at least from Olympic Village to the venue. It's a beautiful day in LA.
All right, we're passing Terminal 1. It'd be interesting to see if it pulls over. I would imagine it probably is not going to pull over here.
You think so?
I would be surprised.
I would be surprised I'm not surprised with FSD anymore on anything. I get so many surprises that I stopped getting surprised, like it does. The other day it pulled into the driveway of a home that I was visiting. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
In driveway. There was already a car parked in the driveway. It was 2 cars parked in the other spot. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I've seen it do that too.
It's getting pretty close to Terminal 2. So let's see.
And it's amazing that it's doing this all with cameras, making sure it doesn't hit any other car.
Yeah.
Keeping distance, understanding its surroundings, all with cameras.
This car does not have any ultrasonic sensors, does it?
No.
Wow.
All right, here's Terminal 2.
Coming up.
Let's see what it does here as we approach the pin.
I'm on Delta. I don't see Delta sign on Terminal 2, but I know that my app said that my flight's off of Terminal 2, so. But it's strange that they don't have a sign for Delta, unless it's further down. There's some airlines I've never heard of. Condor, Norse. What are these? Future Airlines?
Okay, it doesn't seem to be pulling over.
It's
All right, so I'll have to just pull over myself.
There's a car. Watch out.
Okay.
Yeah, you dropped me here.
So pretty good. Zero intervention drive. Only thing you didn't do is pull over to the curb.
Yeah.
But was able to get us here without having to touch anything.
Correct. So make a video of exiting the airport.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
That'll be interesting.